there's 3 separate parcels involved. And it's where they want to build the house. They can move that because there's a lot of property, but there's this one that goes from Prospect almost all the way to Sunrise.
Okay, Tim, you should be all set. Thank you for waiting.
All right, let's call the meeting to order of the Zoning Board of Appeals. Roll call. Tim Hamilton's here.
Mike Schlossberg's here.
Bill Kirby is here.
Noah Demarest is here.
All right, we have everybody here. We have a public hearing for the special use permit application submitted by Ithaca Neighborhood Housing Services for improvements to Compass Mobile Home Community. You have somewhere in all of your stacks what eventually we will get to, which is the special use permit sheet that looks like this. And approved without conditions, approved with conditions, or denied. It's a rather involved project. Do we have, let's make a motion to open for public hearing.
I'll move to open for public hearing.
Phil makes an motion. Can I have a second?
I'll second it.
Michael seconds. All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Anybody here for public hearing? Seeing no one here for that, can I have a motion to close public hearing?
I'll move to close.
Phil moved to close. Can I have a second?
I'll second that.
So
Hey,
Mike,
Ted,
what?
Laura Lee Muller, Mara?
She's with I.
there is someone on the Zoom that I'm not familiar with.
I didn't hear what you said.
She said that-
I'm with
Someone on Zoom
INHS.
who wants to make a public comment?
Nope.
She said, nope.
No. Okay. Sorry. I keep forgetting that we have some people on Zoom. I mean, I recognize Noah there, that he's here on Zoom. And, but, okay. So we have a motion from Phil. We have a second from Mike to close public comment. Any question? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Old business, seeker resolution declaring lead agency. Seeker resolution declaring lead agency right here. You should have it somewhere in your stack. It says it right across the top, seeker resolution. Did we hear back from any of the other agencies requesting that someone else wanted to take the lead on this?
I got several that they said they did not want to find with the village being lead agency, not everybody,
But nobody came forward and, is your mic on the back? Just flip the button. But we didn't have anybody saying, hey, I want this,
correct,
and take it from us.
correct.
So basically, this resolution, if you go down to the now therefore be it resolved, the Zoning Board of Appeals hereby designate itself as the lead agency for the action identified above. And this is for reviewing the special use permit and the seeker materials, seeker regulations related to the Compass project. We will need a motion and a second.
For that, what page are we looking at here?
It's this, it says right across the top, seeker resolution declaring lead agency.
It should be on the top. But
Yeah. Got it?
yep,
Yeah. So this is a resolution where we would simply declare ourselves the body who's going to review the seeker.
I just have 3 copies of the same.
I don't know. The second one is a seeker resolution determination of significance. Was below that.
Seeker resolution declaring lead agency, seeker resolution declaring lead agency, seeker.
Oh, you just have multiple copies.
Lou handed out the material.
Yeah,
We'll have to
I
do
know.
that for him.
It's, say we're the most efficient.
Oh, 'cause that pile is.
This is not my
That's
file?
overage. So, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I'll leave that.
There we go. That's for people coming in for the public
There's
hearing.
just so many papers here.
Yeah.
I guess that's- Okay.
So, we would need a motion to adopt this resolution where we would become the lead agent. And a second, and then we would have a roll call vote. If we're ready to do this.
And just to clarify, once we declare we're lead agency, then we fill out this.
We review
Yeah.
we review parts 2 and part 3 of the seeker. We become responsible for that. And then that would give us the ability to move ahead on the special use permit for the project. Are we prepared to be the lead agent?
So I guess I'll make a motion to declare that the zoning board of appeals declares itself as the lead agency on the seeker resolution.
Okay. No, you can participate in making motions and seconds.
I'll second then.
I'm not saying you have to. I'm just saying, I don't want you to feel like you're not in the meeting because you're in the meeting.
Yeah, no,
When we did all virtual meetings, we all participated that way. All right, so we got a second by Noah. Any knowledgeable discussion of what we're getting ourselves into? That you want to ask any questions? The materials are in front of us tonight, both section 2 and 3. So we can begin the review process if we agree to be the lead agent. So the materials in front of us, and then following all of that would create whether there's going to be conditions relating to the special use permit based on the seeker and based on whether we feel we've got the right answers from the seeker. Any discussion? Otherwise, I'll take a roll call vote.
No, I mean, I feel like we went over most of that last meeting, right?
Well, it was the part 1 we went through, which identified the scope of.
But in terms of declaring ourselves lead agency.
Yeah, we kind of said we're going to go down this route unless someone else has a greater argument to replace us.
Right.
Not meant too many groups that want to take work on it. All right, Phil, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Yes. Noah, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mike, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I vote yes. And Scott Sheevely, who's listed here, is no longer on the zoning board as of 2022. So the motion is approved. And let me write these down here. Motion was by Phil. Second was by Noah. All right. So next thing we do is if you'll look for seeker materials that you have in front of you for part 2. It should be full environmental assessment form part 2.
There's a little clip on it.
Identification of potential project impacts. That's what we're looking at below. Part 1 might be sitting on top of it, but that was what we did the last time. Part 2 is what we're looking at. We're gonna have to read through a lot of this. So anyway, the opening paragraph says, part 2 is designed to help the lead agency, us, to inventory all potential resources that could be affected by this project. Recognize that the lead agency's reviewers will not necessarily be environmental professionals. The questions are designed to walk a reviewer through the assessment process by providing a series of questions that can be answered using the information found in part 1. Now, this part 1 that we had, this is not accurate. The one that we had here, or is this?
That is not the final one. I have a copy of the final one that was sent out and right here.
This is the final one
Yes.
of part 1.
Mhm.
Okay. Is this appreciably different from the one we went through at the last meeting?
There were some revisions.
Because I remember there were things that were marked that said were going to be revised, and that's what's found in this.
Yes,
Okay.
and that was the version that was sent out to all the involved and interested agencies.
Okay. All right. So that will be needed as we walk through this.
So just to be clear, part one is the short environmental assessment form?
It should be the full. I'm not sure why.
Yeah, this is the full. That one that you have, that short, is not what we were looking for.
I'm sorry.
Is there a
So,
full one in this?
The long is if just so I understand what we're doing, the long is the going through every question, and then 2 and 3 is reviewing it,
Yes.
summarizing it.
So
Is that what we're doing
part
here?
one is where the applicant basically prepares the project scope and provides information about the project. Part 2 is where the reviewing board goes through and evaluates whether or not there is a impact in a certain category.
From everything they've said.
And then part 3 is where you take the summation of those impacts or lack thereof and make a determination on the environmental significance of the action.
Okay. All right, so if you have part 2 in front of you, and then I have a full copy here of part 1.
Okay.
That we can make reference to as needed. Let's see. If you answered yes to a numbered question, complete all the questions that follow. Okay, if it's no, move on. They're just telling how this works.
So to clarify, this was just a draft copy that MRB prepared for the board's consideration. Any of these answers can be changed as the
Okay.
board deems.
Okay, so what you have in front of us is part 2. This is what MRB went through in looking at the full environmental assessment and gave a preliminary report as to what they saw. Okay. All right, let's start. The impact on the land. Proposed action may involve construction or physical alteration of the land surface. That's yes. And then here are the things that looks like may happen. The proposed action may involve construction on land where depth to the water table is less than 3 feet. So the water table is below that. So we're not in not in a lot of the areas like in the village where the water's sitting everywhere.
Bradley Street.
Down
Also,
Seneca Road.
To clarify, the 2 categories are no or small impact.
Yeah.
That's moderate or large impact. So
Right.
one could say there is an impact, but the small impact can still have to be that same category.
Okay. The proposed action may involve construction on slopes of 15% or greater. No or small impact. Because it's relatively level ground out there. We don't have any large slopes.
There's no steep slopes. It's not flat by any stretch of the imagination.
And this is based, if you look in that section, part 1, that's where you would look in this report to find where they've revealed this information.
Correct.
Right. So unless you guys have a question about something, we'll turn to that part and we'll discuss it. All right. Let's just walk through this line by line.
And this map does have a topo overlay on it.
Okay. The proposed action may involve construction on land where the bedrock is exposed or generally within 5 feet of existing ground surface. Again, the answer is no. Proposed action may involve the excavation removal of more than 1,000 tons of natural material. No, the scope of the project is not to be moving that. It seems like it's limited for just what they're going to do related to drainage ponds and maybe rebuilding the road surface. Correct. Yeah. The proposed action may involve construction that continues for more than 1 year or multiple phases. I think the goal is that it won't take a year. And we're only looking at a single phase to this project at this point. Proposed action may result in increased erosion, whether from physical disturbance or vegetation removal. We didn't see that as being because they're working to move all groundwater in an appropriate way. Proposed action may be located within a coastal erosion hazard area. No, we're not on the coast. Or that. Impact on geological features? No. So there are no geological features like cliffs, dunes, fossils, caves, minerals. Okay. Impacts on surface water? Yes. What is the surface water that is under consideration on the project? Is there a stream, right?
Yes, there's a little Army Corps.
Okay. Proposed action, part A may create a new water body. No, there's no intention to do that. Proposed action may result in an increase or decrease of over 10% or more than a 10-acre increase or decrease in the surface area of any body of water. Is that saying they would make a pond bigger or they make a stream bed wider?
I think so.
Is that what that's talking about?
Yeah, if you increase the depth of the lake, it would increase the surface area.
Okay. And they're not.
Is it- So like that, there's a retention pond here, like too, and that's not considered a body of water, is that, or like it's a small body of water, or
I think this
since
is,
it's like a temporary sort of holding space for runoff?
yeah, so it isn't a major feature, at least that's how we looked at it when we prepared this draft. EAF for consideration that it is a small impact, as it is, you know, not a massive facility that they're building.
Okay. Part C, the proposed action may involve dredging more than 100 cubic yards. They're not looking to do that. Again, this is the impact on water that's already there. And there's not a pond that you're increasing or dumping all the runoff into. There's construction within or adjoining a freshwater or tidal wetland. No. May create turbidity in a water body. Disturbing bottom sediments, no. Include construction of one or more intakes for withdrawal of water from surface water. What does that mean? Include the construction of one or more intakes for withdrawal of water?
So that'd be for like providing public water, like pump station.
Oh, okay. Okay. Proposal may include construction of one or more outfalls for discharge of wastewater to surface waters. We're not doing that. In this project, the proposed action may cause soil erosion or otherwise create a source of stormwater discharge. It remind me that in the actual construction and the permitting process of the wastewater, not the wastewater, but the runoff water, that has to be approved by
So,
who?
so us MRB as village engineers are reviewing it. It will also need to receive approval from New York State DEC.
Okay,
Any impacts in a wetland or other regulated water body will need to be reviewed and approved by US ACME, Army Corps of Engineers.
Right. Anything that's determined that's in the wetlands, everything else just goes through state DEC.
That's correct.
Okay, because you know that's part of the plan is where water is going to go in this new retention areas of that.
So this is very close to a wetland, so this, like, how close to the wetland is the actual proposed construction?
Sure, yes, the stormwater pond is directly adjacent. Discharge is in the next door, but that's after it doesn't need treatment home.
And then, can you just fill in, like, the pond is there to allow settling of sediment and also to allow sort of like larger capacity for temporary storage of like a large runoff event?
Correct.
And also it's sort of a slow percolating, like how does the water leave the retention pond?
So there'll be an outlet control structure, which has a smaller orifice and slowly discharges water after the pond fills up and it's treated.
Okay. And like, so like number D here is the proposed action may involve construction within or adjoining a freshwater wetland, which it does. but like, why is it not significant in this case?
So how US ACOE regulates federal waters is only within the boundaries of those federal waters is where they actually have any jurisdiction. So if you're constructing next to it, that would not be under ACOE's jurisdiction.
Okay, so it would only be if you were constructing something within the wetland that this particular comment would be a moderate to large impact?
Depending on the nature of construction and how you interpret.
Yummy.
This really is, it really is up to the board's opinion whether or not these are large, moderate, small, or no impact.
And I'm just like, I have no idea. So like, I'm just trying to get a gauge on like what, you know.
So my understanding is that the only thing actually being constructed within a wetland is replacement of some existing culverts.
Correct, yes.
Okay,
Yeah, no fill in or any other action besides the replacement of culverts will occur.
okay.
So we're at H. The proposed action may cause soil erosion or otherwise create a source of stormwater discharge that may lead to siltation, other degradation. And no, because they're looking to create an appropriate method for dealing with the movement of water. The proposed action may affect the water quality of any water bodies within or downstream of the site of the proposed action. So you said there's a stream that runs through there, but basically what you're doing is not going to impact that stream.
No, the only impact of that would be replacement of culvert. And the stream currently runs through a degraded culvert, and that's the one.
Okay.
What's the actual increase in like paved surface compared to what's there now, or even I guess existing sort of gravel surface to the new paved surfaces that will be going in?
Unfortunately, I don't have that number in front of me, but there will be a moderate increase in pervious area given the fact that we're adding lots and it won't be anything.
One J. The proposed action may involve the application of pesticides or herbicides in and around any water body. You're not doing anything with that. The proposed action may require the construction of new or expansion of existing wastewater treatment facilities. No. Impact on groundwater, says there's no impact on the groundwater. Okay. Impact on flooding. Proposed action may result in development on land subject to flooding. Is there any flooding up there? I mean, it's not identified as a floodplain, right? The wetlands is not the same thing, right?
No.
Wetlands is just ongoing
Yeah.
issue versus flooding would be temporary moments of disaster. Okay, so there's no flooding up there.
If you look at the questions below there, even though it's a no, in development in a designated floodway,
Yeah.
development within 100-year floodplain, 500-year floodplain, so there's none of that.
None of that's in the area. And that's through section 5 there, the impact on flooding, because they're not in those areas. Okay. Impact on the air. Proposed action includes state regulated air emission source. You're not building anything. You're not a trash burning site. Nothing related to anything that would create carbon. Impact on plants and animals. No, because you're not really changing what's there. It's going to be deer-free zone. For
While
my back.
construction is going on, I'm sure it'll be your free.
Drive them into the village.
And who lives in the culverts that are getting taken out?
Impact on agricultural resources. Proposed action may impact agricultural. Is there agricultural stuff going on adjacent to the properties right
Yes.
now?
There is an agricultural field to the over the west, yes.
And what is that being used for? Basically just hay? Or are they planting corn there or
Yeah.
soybeans or?
Yeah, I believe it's your corn crop.
Okay. Is that a rental property?
Yes, INHS currently owns that, and the farmer has a lease agreement.
Okay, so it's your property that when you bought it, they had a lease agreement with the previous owners and you honored that
Yes.
just on a yearly basis, or is there a,
You don't know, I don't know.
Okay.
But the lease is about to end maybe 9 years.
I was wondering, is that land that is going to eventually be proposed to expand the park? Is that in the larger picture, or it was just part of the whole package deal? You get this piece of land as well that's being rented?
Right, and eventually, maybe in the future, it might be developed into something else, but that's not, that's later down the future.
Okay, okay.
And it's a separate parcel now, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Separate.
Okay, so okay, so it's a separate parcel that's already set aside that way. Okay. This is probably set up mainly to probably protect owners who are doing agricultural work next to your property. And at this point, it's your property. So out beyond your property lines, there isn't any other agricultural stuff going on? Are there neighboring agricultural stuff
Yes.
happening out there?
Yeah, there's a farm that would be on the north side of the development, which is on Seneca County.
Okay.
I'm not sure what the plan in that field this year.
Okay.
And I believe to the east, there was a field, or maybe a fallow field at this point.
Okay. Okay, so let's look at these things under number 8A. The proposed action may impact soil classified within soil group 1 through 4 of the classification system. I have no idea what that's talking about. What is that, section E? There's different classifications of soil. Is that what it is?
Really
You guys understand this more than me?
delicious.
Is that like talking about the quality of the soil for what people could do with it?
Yeah, so
Type
I'm
it.
less familiar with the New York State land classification system, with the exception of looking up what the classifications are whenever I typically go through the. I'm familiar with the Natural Resource Conservation Service classifications.
Let's see. Status of the soils, as you look at E2C on this, moderately well drained is 36% of the site, poorly drained 64% of the site. And then you look at E3B. Are agricultural lands consisting of highly productive soils present? Yes. It's considered in Tompkins County farmland or statewide importance, 1.7 acres prime farmland if drained. The source of that is the Natural Resource Conservation Service. So there is good soil there, but your work is not going to
But
necessarily.
no, I mean, the project is
impact
not happening on the agricultural site. It's just that INHS owns the agricultural site.
No, this is talking about the impact you'd have, I think, on adjoining sites. Is the way I've read it. Impact agricultural resources on, I would think, adjoining sites. What it seems to me, and if you know many of the farms around here, they all have to tile so many of the fields in order to make them
Sure.
work well. And that's what this report seems to, the declaration is that, you know, it's good farmland if you drain it appropriately. It's got good soil and you can grow stuff. I know a lot of the farmers around here, and they're always having to work on a new field to tile it so they can grow stuff on it. But what you're doing is not necessarily going to impact that.
I think from reading through this, it would cover both. Because,
Both their own
Soil
land.
Profile of the
yeah,
of
the
active
resulting
agricultural land.
excavation or compaction of the soil profile of active agricultural land.
Where are you seeing
I mean,
that?
so
Uh,
irreversibly
that's the-
convert agricultural land to non-agricultural, like, I think part of the concern is like, if you have good farmland, you don't necessarily want to build a housing development.
Right.
And I think this is what they're trying to.
That would come then more into what we talked about, that other plot that they own that is farmland. If they wanted to put a big parking lot on it, there might be a complaint about you're getting rid of good farmland to build a parking lot.
But that's where my confusion was, like, the impact on agricultural resources are in the lot adjoining this one then? Is that where we're considering this as, like, which lot is this, yes, pertaining to, like, the.
This is Don D with PG Miller. I can chime in if that's helpful. The prime farmland, I think, is for the encompassing both the north and south side based on the soil survey. So some of that prime farmland is already within the developed area, within, you know, roads and buildings. But there is a portion on the western side too that is being developed. That's within the agricultural area.
Okay,
It's the narrow sliver on the back side of the hedgerow.
So basically, the answer is yes, because there is agricultural resources as part of this, because we've built on agricultural land.
okay.
But then the impact, according to all these subpoints, is it's minimal.
Okay.
It's either not an impact or it's minimal what it's going to do. It may sever, cross, or otherwise limit access to agricultural lands. Well, no. Proposed action may result in the excavation or compaction of the soil. You know, so good farmland becomes less desirable farmland because of what they would do to it. That's not part of what this project is. They're going to repave roads that are already compacted. They're already not growing corn between the trailers. The proposed that I've tried to grow things on packed soil, okay, so I don't grow anything anywhere. I don't know how to do it. The proposed action may irreversibly convert agricultural land to non-agricultural land. Non-agricultural uses. Well, no, because you're not expanding the park at this point.
Well, we are adding the 13 units on the western side.
So is that here, like, right, so this is north, like, you're adding 13 units on this side of the park?
Yeah.
And so this is the proper, like, one of the lot lines here?
Yes,
Is that
that's
correct?
the current property line.
Okay, and then this is the secondary field that's currently being rented?
That's my understanding.
You're not building into the area that's being rented. You're expanding the area that's already, quote, laid out within the park parameters.
There will be a little bit of that agricultural field that is developed as part of those 13 lots that you can see on drawing C101 survey.
Which drawing?
It's the top one on.
C101, yeah.
So if you see on would be the western side.
Is that
It's on the
this
bottom.
part, the bottom where it says Leisure Circle
Yes.
below Fulton Drive?
Leisure circle.
Yeah,
Yep, so on the opposite
well, there's,
side.
the leisure circle looks like it's a loop, given the name, but.
Right.
on the
So
bottom-
that is not there right now, you're saying.
This should be Leisure Loop, I think.
There's nothing there.
There's nothing on the field side of that. So that road only has trailers on one side.
Oh, with the idea that trailers would then be on the other side.
Correct. Yes, we had 13 additional lots.
Oh, okay,
And that would take up and use some of that
okay.
agricultural field there. But as part of the previous subdivision, that line was drawn into the field.
Okay. Well, yeah, okay.
Yep,
So in the original subdivision, it was designed that this would all be part of the park. It just hadn't been expanded to that point yet.
correct. Yes.
Okay. So you're saying as that field has been rented, they've rented across the boundary line.
So the boundary line was just established as part of the subdivision when I just purchased the property.
Okay, that's when new lines were drawn.
Correct. Yep.
Okay. With the new line, identifying the rental farmland.
Yeah, so the farmer currently leases on both sides. Because it's
Right.
all still field, but
Right.
once the lease agreement's over, then maybe continue on.
Yeah.
Okay, so it'll be continued on west of that line and east of that line, one day in the future will be developed with 13 additional lots.
Okay, so at a point at which the lots would be developed there would be when that would stop being agricultural land.
Correct.
Are you anticipating in this initial phase, is the development of those lots part of this initial phase?
No, it will not be part of the initial construction. However, we will construct the utilities along that roadway to service them in the future.
Right,
And services to those lots will be stubbed up as part
Right,
of this initial
right.
construction.
okay.
Will those lots encompass, like, what's the acreage that those extra 13 lots will encompass in that?
Fortunately, don't have that number in front of me, however, I do believe it's under 2.5 acres. you mentioned.
Yes, it says on point D. Well, the proposed action may service either more than 2.5 acres if located in an agricultural district or more than 10 acres. So it must be, is this an agricultural district? Is it considered agricultural district?
Yeah, I only know the zoning districts.
Yeah.
So that wouldn't be a good one.
What is, can we see MRB's comments for that one?
No, there's a good thing.
Did they make comments on that?
For the EAF, we did not provide any specific comments on the EAF.
Oh, but wait, what were you referencing, Tim, when you referenced?
I was just looking through I was just looking at the full impact statement that the proposers filled out,
Oh,
where they identify and support,
so what were the comments?
let me look
there
at that.
for-
So E1B,
Yeah, and E3A.
Yeah.
So this is to scale.
Yes.
I see there's a scale here, so we could just paste it off.
I was gonna lick my
Yeah,
fingers
what's it?
for a moment to turn the pages.
So as I look
Really?
at it, there's also an existing vegetative line along the sidewalk.
That'll be the swale line.
A lot of the lots are areas that aren't being farmed right now. Anyway.
No, those 13 lots, for lack of a better description, half of it's gonna be in what is now a vegetative barrier, and the other half will
Gotcha.
go through into the farm.
E1B talks about the percentage or the amount of acreage.
Buffer.
This talks about the amount of acreage and how it's divided up. So the current acreage of the area is 33 acres. 7.4 acres is roads, buildings, and other paved surfaces. Forested is 1.3 acres. Wetlands is 1.4 acres. Nothing listed for agricultural as a breakdown.
Okay.
Because the project is not. No, I'm sorry. 43 is the total acres. Lawn is 33 acres. I didn't see that at the bottom. So of the 43 acres of the current acreage, 33 is lawn, 1.4 is wetlands, 1.3 is forest, and 7.4 is roads and buildings. After the completion of the project, roads and buildings will be 2 acres more, 9.4. Forested will be less, 0.9. Surface water features will grow to 0.3. And wetlands will remain 1.4. Lawn will decrease by almost 2 acres. So again, there's no agricultural meadows, grasslands, brushlands, orchards, greenhouses, fields that is part of the project area. I'm sorry about that. E3A, let me see what E3A says. E3A. Is the project site or any portion of it located in a designated agricultural district certified? And the answer was yes. under Seneca, it looks like Seneca County. Seneca County, number 12, the district name and number. So it is designated agricultural.
Just to clarify, that's, yeah, north side only designated for ag district. South side is no ag districts.
Okay. So the north side you're saying is in the ag district, but not the south side?
Correct, based on the county mapping.
Okay.
And the clerk just texted me to say the village does not have ag district.
Well, that's what I was thinking within the
Yeah,
village. And it's
right.
because you mentioned the zoning districts and I'm going to remember there being
Yeah.
agricultural.
But so wait, is that lot on the, that is on the west side of the park in the village? Or is?
Yes, that's all
these are
part of the annexed village land. Yes,
Okay.
yes. Even though it feels like it's way out.
Well, I just didn't know where the bound, like, so the boundary doesn't end at the west side of Leisure Circle, it ends at the other side of that farm field.
Yes, yes. I remember when the land was annexed, it went all the way. There was that other field that was up there.
Okay.
Because that is the only area that was designated in the zoning revision of 10 years ago for adult entertainment. I was in those meetings for hours and hours of carving out a place where we could have adult entertainment. If you know what I mean. And they says, put it in that field past the trailer park.
That's the one place where.
That's the only place in the zoning map where you can have it. Because they usually put them in industrial areas and they didn't want it down there like off of,
Main Street.
no, down there, where, the old coal place, Earhart's was, that KJ now has. That was the only industrial area, and it says, no, we don't want it there, put it out past the trailer park. So that's why I know that area was, nothing was built there. As far as I know, there's nothing built there. Okay, so the answer is no to the, this farmland, but it seems like that's not an actually agricultural district, even though some of that land's being used agriculturally.
So we're on number 10, correct?
We were working on number 8.
Number 8.
Sorry, I was reading number, so I meant 8D, are we talking about?
I
or
think
8?
so.
Well, we were just this whole
We were
section
discussing
8.
that.
But we're on D.
So,
Yeah, we're on D.
yeah, so we look at 8D at least, so
It has to be 10 acres they're impacting if it's not in an agricultural district.
yes, which the
Gotcha.
area to the west on the south side is not in a district.
It's not in a district, so it'd have to be 10 acres of involvement, and it's not 10 acres, it's a small strip.
I did a quick calc, it's like 5.8 acres. For that, you know, from the road to the property line.
To the property line, that whole section there.
Yeah, so
Okay.
considerably under 10.
Okay. All right. We have all learned and grown. E, the proposed action may disrupt or prevent installation of an agricultural land management system. No. Proposed action may result directly or indirectly in increased development potential or pressure on farmland. No, I don't think so. The proposed project is not consistent with the adopted municipal farm land protection plan.
Do we have one of those?
The village has not adopted it from the protection plan.
Right, because there's not farmland in the village.
Farmland.
So probably someone would want it on South Street. Impact on aesthetic resources. The land use of the proposed action are obviously different from or in sharp contrast to current land use patterns between the proposed project and a scenic or aesthetic resource. Okay, the answer was yes. So there is an impact, but Part A, proposed action may be visible from any officially designated federal, state, or local scenic or aesthetic resource. Not that I'm aware of up there. There's nothing, there's no state
Nothing
parklands or
designated, right.
anything designated. Proposed action may result in obstruction, elimination, or significant screening of one of more officially designated scenic views. No. Proposed action may be visible from publicly accessible vantage points. Yes.
You can see it from the road.
It's not screened by summer foliage, right? Year round. So it's seen, but it's not significant, I don't think.
I mean, but ultimately, I think this project is improving
The view?
the nature of the, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I don't,
The other thing is it does appear that they are installing a vegetative buffer,
okay.
which would act as some screening of this as well.
Okay.
The vegetative, is that like along the road? Is that the vegetative buffer?
The buffer is proposed to actually screen those 13 proposed lots on the west side.
From the
So
farm.
that barrier would be between the field and the new lots.
Mhm.
So.
Oh, kind of like the defined. What is a vegetative buffer?
It'll be a combination of tree plantings, grass plantings, natural
Okay.
shrubberies.
And to clarify, the reason why we suggested that number 9 is a yes is because one of the questions referenced in that description up there does indicate that they're within a certain radius of or of a horizontal distance of a scenic resource. Now, whether or not they're actually visible or not is a whole different.
What's the
story.
scenic
What's the
resource?
scenic
Let
resource?
me pull.
Well, we're talking.
I mean, sunset, you can see from up there. I don't know. I'm
New York State DOT scenic byway database. So the Cable Lake Scenic Byway is within 2 miles. per
Oh, so
VA
this is
parking lot.
Route 89 is Puget Lake.
the scenic byway. Okay.
It's-
Because it's within a distance parameter of what is way down there, puts it in the position whether or not it's real because of the way the actual geography is.
Yes, now you could
Okay.
also say that,
Because I don't think you can see the lake from anywhere up there.
you could also say that number 9 is a no because of the fact that's not visible. We
Right.
just suggest, we're just
Yeah.
suggesting
Okay.
conservatively that there is at least reason to evaluate it.
Okay, that makes
I see.
sense.
So if there's, similar project.
What does D mean? The situation or activity in which viewers are engaged while viewing the proposed action is routine travel by residents, recreational tourism-based activities.
So it's basically stating, when would the public see this potential
I mean, I guess the only,
aesthetic issue?
the only thing is that, there's the nature trail that's at the end of Salo that you can, come
Alright.
quite close to. So you, I mean,
There's a nature
in
trail?
theory, you could, yeah, pretty nice.
Didn't know.
Cool.
But, yeah, but I was redoing the roads and the sewer and the water. And
Yeah, I don't think it will have a big
But
impact,
I-
but it is,
It's appreciated that
considering.
it's brought up to
Okay.
consider.
Okay. The proposed action may cause a diminishment of the public enjoyment and appreciation of the designated center. No, it's not going to change the enjoyment. There are similar projects visible within the following distances of the proposed project. No, there's no other projects going on. That's what that's saying, right? Are there other projects going on?
So my understanding of what this question is referring to is usually asking, is this in sharp contrast to what else is out there?
Okay,
So are you building a new manufactured home park where there are no other manufactured home parks? In this case,
Yeah.
there's an existing manufactured home park that's being worked on and expanded. So one could say that it is within 0 to 2 miles of another existing mobile home park. And that it is going to be expanded.
okay. All right. Impact on historic and archaeological resources? No, as far as we know. There's nothing historical or archaeological up there. Impact on open space and recreation? A no. We're not going to lose any recreational opportunities. They're not going to take away open space. 12, impact on critical environmental areas located within or adjacent to a critical environment. What is a critical environmental area? What is that defined as?
exactly recall and what the definition of critical environmental area is. However, they are mapped by New York State DEC.
Okay,
There is none in the area.
okay. Impact on transportation? No. They're not changing the main road. Not changing entries and exits as far as reducing them. Impact on energy, increasing the use of any form of energy. Is there sufficient, as you think of the expansion, there's sufficient utilities for electric? And did you say do you guys have gas out there for the residents?
Yeah, all the trailer, new mobile home will be electric, and right now we're in communication with the existing distribution facility will need to be upgraded.
So there's no natural gas out there, right? To any.
There is.
Oh, there is natural gas. Okay. So people are using natural gas and electric presently, or some using propane?
They're mainly right now it's natural gas.
Okay.
All new homes though will be converted to electric. All existing ones will remain on gas, and over the years as the homes are switched out, they'll be turned on.
Okay. Okay. And will that require, because of the size of the park, if it goes completely electric, is that going to require a substation or?
No, not for.
To provide for the amount of units that are out there?
No, just new transformers.
Okay. So no on the
2,500 megawatts of electricity per year is pretty. That's a lot.
Yeah. And they're saying that's not what that's like the threshold.
I mean, that's one of the questions. Will
Yeah,
it utilize more than 2,500 megawatt hours electricity a year?
Impact on noise, odor, and light. Yes. The proposed action may produce sound above noise levels established by. Now, is this construction? They're saying noise during construction or noise as a result of the final project?
Usually we would suggest you consider both. And that's also why we typically say yes on this one, or at least that's what we would suggest. So it's the fact that during construction, we'll likely have some increase in ambient noise. That's the nature of construction.
Right. Well, then the second question would be, is the result of the work they're doing going to make this place obnoxious and loud? And you're not changing the nature of the park other than adding some additional lots. Okay. Outdoor lighting. Proposed action may result in blasting. No, they're talking actually like blasting bedrock. Is that what that's talking about?
I think anything you might use an explosive for.
Yeah. The proposed action may result in routine odors for more than 1 hour per day. There's nothing related to the nature of the construction that's going to produce that, right?
Well, asphalt, but I think that's.
I mean, but this is also considering the overall, like the use of the land after construction, right?
I think
It's
so.
not now.
Yeah, I mean, changing it. If you're putting in a gas powered go-kart
Right.
facility that's going to run 100 go-karts at 12 hours a day for
We're
5 months
we're
in the
not-
summer, that's probably going to create an impact. And the new lighting, I'm assuming there's all these new code expectations on what kind of lighting can go in and producing light pollution.
Requirement.
There's all requirements now,
Yeah,
what you
it's
can
not
do.
expectations.
and can't do.
Dark skies, and my
Okay.
understanding is that's de rigueur for most folks now.
Impact on human health, yes. For exposure to new or existing source contaminants. The proposed action is located within 1,500 feet of a school, hospital, licensed daycare center, group home, nursing home, or retirement community. It is not. The site is currently undergoing remediation. Is that for like an environmental issue?
Yeah.
Remediation?
There was pollution.
There hasn't been any spills or anything up there? Has there?
There was,
Oh, was there like a
there was a spill of a few from the north side
gas?
that has been since closed.
Okay.
Was it like a fuel oil?
Kerosene is what represents here.
Okay.
That's the reason why we checked yes.
Because of that had happened, and now, according to C, that has been remediated. Okay. Site of the action is subject to an institutional control limiting the use of the property.
So it should C be, oh, I guess C is small impact because it was a small leak and it's been remediated. There's a completed
Going
Oh,
emergency
yeah.
spill remediation.
We'll
or a
read
completed
line by
environmental site
line. I
remediation.
don't know what it is.
Is Donnie trying to say something?
I don't know.
Or Lorraine, Lorraine?
I couldn't understand that.
Well, I think what it's saying is they're acknowledging, the yes acknowledges there was this completed, and then it's not going to have further impact, is why it's then no. The no for C, we're talking about C. The no is not saying, no, they haven't completed the remediation. They're saying there's no more impact or very little impact from the incident that required remediation.
I feel like that's a confusing, I mean.
I think it's terribly written, but you're working with a form that you have to then try and address an issue.
Yeah. I mean, okay, fine, let's.
So the question is, I mean, when we saw a spill, I mean, we talking 100 gallons, we talking 5,000
Yeah.
gallons of kerosene. I mean, how big was this issue?
Unfortunately, I don't know.
Okay.
EC website or what the database doesn't share that.
The quantity says unknown, and I'm assuming it could be a small amount, it could be a large amount, but it just says unknown.
But it's a result of a single homeowner's, I mean, this wasn't, because the nature of this place is they're all individual homes. It was one home probably that had an issue.
So
Because you as a park aren't like storing kerosene that was then being used by everybody. There wasn't like a kerosene pump station.
The dirt bike hit the kerosene tank.
Is that really what happened?
No, I'm.
The spill description says, sort of private dwelling.
Okay.
Can you tell me what year the spill was in and what year it was considered to be fully remediated?
Spill date was May 6th, 2017,
Oh, it's recent.
and date spill closed is March 2nd, 2018.
And do they say what remediation actions were taken?
There's no real further description on it as far as whether or not there's any remediation done.
A spill was reported and then a spill was cleared. That's what the 2018 date is saying. They cleared and say we're good,
It's basically them saying that it was closed by a case manager.
meaning it's no longer an issue.
Yes, or it could have
Okay.
been, that could have been the date. Yeah, I believe that.
I was part of an organization where we had a spill of 500 gallons of fuel. 500. And they had to remove tons and tons of ground, and it had to be incinerated at like 1,800 degrees, and it was thousands of dollars. And then they had to build a whole new thing for containing the tank from which the spill had occurred. So.
Yeah, so according to the site, it's either because it's closed for administrative reasons or because all necessary cleanup and removal actions have been completed, no further remedial activities are necessary.
Okay.
So that site is open and is presently being used, that particular.
I'm not sure if that particular one is or not, but given the recentness of it, I would imagine.
We're on
D, oh, I guess D.
D. The site of the action is subject to an institutional control limiting the use of the property. There's no.
That's typically a more towards remediation sites where you're
Oh,
which is on a different database, which was also checked for the site.
Okay,
There's a spills incident database is one that trigger it, and that's kind of the lowest level database. That's because just a spill has occurred.
okay. So this limitation would be like, if there was a serious spill, you might limit the number of people that could live there because it's hazardous for them to do so, or something like, what is this? I don't understand quite what the,
So it could be that it could be site of a previous factory or something that had a lot of contamination, and the deed restriction could say that there's to be no residential uses on
Okay.
this location.
okay,
right,
In this case, there's no such deed restrictions to the best. of
Okay.
our knowledge.
okay. The proposed action E may affect institutional control measures that were put in place to ensure that the site remains protective of the environment and human health. Again, there's been no institutional controls put in place. The proposed action has adequate control measures in place to ensure the future generation, treatment, and or disposal of hazardous waste. We don't anticipate there being hazardous waste as part of people living there, correct? Unless they all go to electric vehicles and they start burying their batteries, right? And it's just thought. G, the proposed action involves construction or modification of a solid waste management facility. No. The proposed action may result in the unearthing of solid or hazardous waste. No, we're assuming there's nothing there, right? when you dig up some of those roads. Who monitors that, Tom? If they dig up the whole road surface,
And they find somebody's been changing the oil there for the past 12 years.
yeah, I don't know. I just,
Yeah.
Typically, it'd be the contractor who just has to notice that there is some contamination present.
and they would probably be incumbent to report that.
Yes, usually stop work and in that area and call DEC.
Okay. But we're not anticipating that. The proposed action may result in an increase in the rate of disposal or processing of solid waste. Again,
not significantly.
yeah. Is solid waste just considered people's garbage? Is that part of solid waste?
That is part.
And what is is it dumpsters that you have out there, or does like the village Casella or whatever drive through to individual houses? How does that work?
I think we have done there, it's on the north side.
The people can put their garbage in, and then it's part of what the park provides as part of their rental? Is that they have a place to throw their garbage? What about recycling?
Is it, I think it's currently a non-sort of facility.
I know it's non-sort, like it's part of the village. I just didn't know, did they get the same village services where the truck comes through every other week and people put their recycling out and people get it taken away?
So they don't put it out just at their units, they have to take it up to, I believe, the dumpsters at the barn,
Right.
the old barn on the property.
Okay.
And that's what so comes and collects it.
Okay, so again, that's kind of a benefit that the park pays for the residents. Because like residents within the village, we pay a separate fee every year, the recycling fee, I don't know, it's $100 or whatever it is. And then we
Yes,
put it
that's
out
what
every, okay. Okay, so that's all part of this. J, the proposed action may result in excavation or disturbances within 2,000 feet of a site used for the disposal of solid or hazardous waste. No, we don't have any of that here that I'm aware of. The proposed action may result in the migration of explosive gases from a landfill. No, only in Geneva. The proposed action may result in the release of contaminated leachate from the project. What is leachate?
Stuff that leaches out.
It's
Like
essentially,
stuff from the bottom of your landfill.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's
oh,
why
oh.
they line
Leaching in
landfills
your-
down.
Oh, okay. But we don't have that issue.
Right.
Because we're not a landfill. Consistency with community plans. No means it's not consistent with community plans.
No means it's not.
It's not a problem.
It's not a problem being consistent.
Proposed action is not consistent with adopted land use.
Okay, so it's a double negative, because it is not consistent. Okay,
The same with the next one, the same one is also a double
the
negative.
proposed project is inconsistent with the existing community character. No, it's consistent. Okay. That was it? Didn't seem that painful. That leads us to part 3, a full environmental assessment form, evaluation of the magnitude and importance of project impacts and determination of significance. Part 3 provides the reasons in support of the determination of significance. The lead agency must complete part 3 for every question in part 2, where the impact has been identified as moderate to large. We did not have any moderate to large. We did not. Impacts in part 2. And we would need to explain why a particular element of the proposed action will not or may result in significant adverse environmental impact. So as we went through part 2, we're in agreement that we didn't have any areas where we thought there was going to be significant, moderate to large, significant impact. When you go through all those pages, none of them fell into that category. Okay. Based on the analysis in part 3, the lead agency must decide whether to require an environmental impact statement to further assess any proposed actions. By completing the certification on the next page, the lead agency can complete its determination of significance. Reasons supporting this determination: to complete this section, identify the impact based on part 2 responses, describe its magnitude. Magnitude considers factors such as severity, size, and extent of an impact. We had no areas. Assess the importance of the impact. We didn't have any areas of great impact. The assessment should take into consideration any design element or project changes. Repeat this process for each part 2 question where the impact has been moderate to large. Provide the reasons. For conditional negative declarations, identify the specific conditions imposed that will modify the proposed action. Attach additional sheets as needed. So as far as I'm understanding what that's asking for, we have not identified any areas in part 2 that are large or significant for which we would place any conditions. And we don't see any things where we need additional explanation. I would agree. And so their proposal is, so what does this mean at the bottom? Type 1.
So under the secret regulations, there's 3 different types of actions. Type 1, sorry, let me go through the other way. Type 2 being a action that is listed and meets certain conditions that is assumed to have no environmental significance or impact. Then there's type 1s, which have a more significant likelihood to have an environmental impact, but may still not have an environmental impact, or they may. And then for everything else, that's unlisted. Based on village code, it was determined that this would be a type 1. As the village code increases the thresholds for type 1, making more likely for an action to be a type 1.
Okay. Can you describe the type 1 and type 2 differences again?
Sure. So type 2s are anything where it is unlikely for there to be any environmental significance at all, such that New York State has said that these actions are assumed they will not and may proceed with only just a determination that they are a type 2 action, and no further review is required. A type 1 meets certain thresholds, meaning that a more in-depth review of the environment impact is required, and as such, you must use the full environmental assessment form as opposed to the short form.
So that's why we did this,
Oh,
because there was a threshold. Okay.
Yes.
I see. So we
Yeah.
did the full form because it's a type 1 action,
Okay.
because it's in the village and the village code stipulates.
Yes, the village code, yes, so the threshold are small, are lower, so it's more likely that an action will be a type 1 within the village.
Okay.
Okay, so on the backside of this paper then, based on all of that we've done a type 1 and we've reviewed parts 1, 2, and we're now reviewing part 3. It says at the top of this, upon review of the information recorded in this environmental EAF, as noted, plus this additional support information, which was the full environmental assessment form, the supporting documents, and the maps, and considering the magnitude and importance of each identified potential impact, it is the conclusion of our board, the Village of Trumansburg Zoning Board of Appeals, that either A or B or C. A, the project will result in no significant adverse impacts on the environment, and therefore an environmental impact statement need not be prepared. Accordingly, this negative declaration is issued. That's first option. B, although this project could have a significant adverse impact on the environment, the impact will be avoided or mitigated because of the following conditions. There will therefore be no significant adverse impacts as the project has conditions. Or C, this project may result in one or more significant adverse impacts on the environment. An environmental impact statement must be prepared to further assess the impacts and possible mitigation to explore alternatives to avoid or reduce those impacts. Accordingly, this positive declaration is issued. So a negative declaration would be, you're fine, there's nothing of great significance adverse to the environment. Or there is significant, but you've already addressed it, or we've addressed it with these conditions, or there is significant and we need more work done. If I'm reading this correctly.
So to clarify, under B, a condition negative declaration may only be for unlisted actions.
What do you mean unlisted?
Oh, it's,
So there's type 1, type 2, and unlisted.
Right,
I see. So
Oh,
we
okay.
can't use B here.
because this is not unlisted, this is type 1. So we do A or C. Okay, all right. Do we see any reason not to issue a negative declaration as an A? Is there anything that comes to mind that we shouldn't declare
No.
as a negative declaration? They can move ahead.
I don't see anything there.
So there is a seeker resolution determination of significance. Is that what this is?
Yep. That is acting upon the part 3 and making your determination.
Okay.
So the, as you read through that, whereas, the statement of significance is now therefore be it resolved. That's, you have this one. It is the seeker resolution determination of significance. Looks like this. Whereas. So now therefore be it resolved that said action will not result in any significant adverse environmental impacts based on the review of the full environmental assessment form. And be it finally resolved that the Zoning Board of Appeals does hereby make a determination of non-significance on said action. And the Village of Trumansburg Zoning Board of Appeals chairperson is hereby directed issue the negative declaration as evidence of the Zoning Board of Appeals determination of environmental non-significance. So this is the official motion, would be to declare, as is printed here, there's no significant adverse environmental impacts, and we can issue a negative declaration. We would need a motion and we would need a second. You need a motion in a second. So whatever you want to do, guys. I can't make the motion.
I'll move that we issue a negative declaration for the, oh my God, I don't need to say this right, for the seeker for this project. I don't know yet.
Our determination of significance is a negative declaration.
Okay, I move that our determination of significance is a negative declaration.
Okay, for the Compass project. We have a motion. Can I have a second?
I will second that.
Okay, Mike seconds it. Any questions or discussion before we do a roll call vote? Phil, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Noah, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mike, how do you vote?
Yes.
And Tim votes yes. Motion is carried. Do we now have to work through the special use permit?
That is now an option. So now that seeker has been completed, you do now have the option of acting upon the special use permit for this application.
Now that seeker's completed, we can't do the
You
special?
can, you may.
Oh, we can.
You just can't before seeker is completed.
Right.
Now it has, so you may.
And there's no conditions about us having another public hearing or anything about that, because we already had that in this meeting. Okay. All right, so special use permit approval. You should have a sheet that looks like this. Special use permit.
Just give you this one.
Did you find it?
All right.
I think I found it.
Yeah, so MRB prepared this draft resolution in case the board would wish to approve the special use permit with conditions, and we provided a few conditions for your consideration.
Okay, so the conditions is what's listed as 1 and 2.
Yep, and you may add or remove as you'd like.
Okay. The conditions that have been suggested are the special use permit shall remain in effect for the current owner of the premises, provided the use remains in compliance with the conditions of approval, the village code of conditions of approval in village code. What is that saying? This doesn't transfer to a new owner? Is that what that's saying?
That's my understanding.
The special use permit is to allow them to upgrade, repair, remodel, and add the 13 lots, correct?
Yeah,
This is to do the project, not to have the park, because they already have the park.
And it's an allowed use, right?
It's an allowed use. Yes, in the zone we're in.
So infrastructure improvements.
So what this is saying is they alone can do this project. They can't turn around and sell it next month and that new buyer gets to do this project. The special use permit shall remain in effect for the current owner, because the permit is really to get this project done over a period of months. It's not to have a park. See, a lot of times special use permit is we're changing the use of a property, but this is to allow them to upgrade this property. That's how I'm reading this, that this, I understand this because we've dealt with the issue of grandfathering. You know,
Right.
if a person takes a property and they want to change the use for it and we give them the freedom to do that, we're not saying that that is for the next person who buys the property. That's for this owner for this property, or it could say, no, it just, this new property has a new use. I'm not sure how this relates directly to what we're doing here. That's what I'm raising.
So is it implying that the upgrades are out of the allowed use, outside of the allowed use for this?
No, it's just, this is the
Like, that's,
mechanism for reviewing. This is the mechanism, what I've understood is this is the mechanism, the special use permit is the mechanism for reviewing this improvement. There has to be a mechanism in place in the village to do that. And the special use permit became, it's kind of like the building permit, is the way I understand it. Am I wrong on this?
No.
It's like we're issuing the building permit, the remodel permit. That's why it doesn't seem to have, it's not an
there's
ongoing
like no
issue
substance to it.
unless they decided to sell the. You know, like a person comes in with, you know, a project and they want it, they get all this approval for their next buyer. We'll do all the legwork if you'll buy our project. And I think this is saying, no, you'll do the project. No one else can come in and do this project we've approved.
So, but yeah, I mean, so it's not implying that the infrastructure improvements that are going in will then be sort of disallowed when the
No,
property
no,
is sold.
No. That's what I'm saying. This is a different kind of special use, because normally we look at it as, what are you gonna use this property for the next 10 years, 20 years, 30 years? And will the new owner be allowed to use it the same way? So,
I think that makes sense. And what are the comments within the village engineer's letter that, is that?
Yeah.
Somewhere
So there
here?
is essentially a copy of the letter, and that is the responses from TG Miller to MRB's comments, and that would be this.
That's this one from today, basically.
this.
So the original comments were here, and I actually have the original of our letter.
So what this is saying is, the things that you have raised, you wanna make sure you can resolve them
Yes.
with them. And MRB is acting on behalf of the village and our code enforcement officer to make sure he does a good job.
Hold their feet to the fire.
I mean, we've hired you for your expertise so that Tom doesn't have to be an expertise in everything. And obviously us board members are not. Okay. Was there, as you went through, have you looked at their response?
It was received while I was actually on the road, so I've not actually had a chance to go through it yet.
Were they hugely significant things? I mean, there's a lot of pages here. Was there huge significant things that you raised that could sidetrack the project?
Everything, so there really were a lot of technical comments, but I think the takeaway is that they still have to get their current, there are still other permits they will need to get from other agencies that, while we may have some suggestions, we're not the ones who are approving that part, so.
Okay.
So just to be clear, this letter is in boldface. I'm looking at recommendations that have been made by MRB, and then in
So the bold is their response.
this is TG Miller, who is
The bold is their response to.
INHS's engineer.
Yes.
And a lot of the conditions have been met if you
Right.
go through it.
Well, I don't have a problem with, you guys, the experts hashing it out to figure out what needs to be done. And I'm assuming if there is an unresolvable issue, it could come back to the zoning board to address it.
Yes, and if there was an unresolvable issue, it may be with an agency that.
I'm saying if it's with our village code or something, it could come back to, we're still the lead agency, would have to make the final determination of who gets to say what.
Yeah.
Unless it's an issue that's working with DEC, and then they have their own system of appeal or whatever you work through.
That'd be my understanding.
Okay.
And if you have any questions, about the substance of our letter, I can also explain that too. I'm just, as you said, it is a long letter, so I don't want to necessarily take up your time to read through all of it, but if you guys, if there are any particular areas of concern that you'd like to, understand more, we can certainly take a look and see, what comments we had for those certain areas or discuss any other.
Were you folks able to,
I like this spelling.
get this? Were you folks able to see this? The response to your, well, you made the responses to the, so you must have. seen it. Duh.
Yes, no, we,
Answer my own silly question. So with the part here about addressed to the satisfaction of the village engineer prior to signatures being affixed to the site plan, and all signatures are applied prior to issuance of the permit, is that going to work for you folks?
yes, that was our intention coming into,
Okay.
get discussions permit.
Yeah, I was able to scan this briefly, and it didn't look like there's anything terribly onerous, so from my perspective.
No, like,
Yeah,
honestly,
because-
it's mostly technical comments. And
Yeah.
the permitting flow there you can see, but yes, the comments, we were largely agreed.
Okay.
So basically, that point two is you're good with, we're gonna work it out, and we know we won't get any of the signatures till we work it out.
Yes.
I'm good with that.
I think so too.
I don't care if you spelled through this correctly.
That's a mistake. I think.
What, this one?
Yeah.
I don't see the need for number one on those conditions. I mean, the special use permit shall remain in effect for the current owner of the premises. Because what we talked about before, this is the approval of a building project. And if we approve it, they're gonna do it or they're not gonna do it. And if they sell it, I mean, if you sell the property in the next month or two,
Basically, we should adopt the
conditions.
I mean, essentially, the special use permit is for this specific project. So whoever bought it has to do this specific project, then is that like, since it's not really very clear what the special use permit for outside of like these specific upgrades, is that correct?
It's a vehicle to get, have a record of the action and
Right.
have it go through some process, and site plan review would be the other one, but it wasn't appropriate for this type of action.
So without that restriction, if something happened where it was sold, would that mean that some of these other things would have to be, they wouldn't still be in effect? Some of the suggestions that were generally agreed to. It seems like, I don't see that as an unreasonable addition.
Yeah, I kind of agree. It doesn't seem like an unreasonable addition, and it doesn't seem like a bad idea, like,
I just look at it as like unnecessary verbiage. I don't know. We're approving a project. We're approving a project use with the term special use permit. We're
Right.
approving them to do the project as they've proposed. They've gone through the seeker evaluation to show that it's not going to have any adverse environmental impact. Unless we think there's specific things within the project that we want to address.
But that's what I'm confused by, like, if we have this, if we've granted this special use permit for this project and then it sells and then the project changes drastically, like, is that a possibility? Like, is that, I mean, maybe it's a ridiculous.
Well, let me ask you from
question,
your standpoint
but
with a
it's
building
like-
permit. If you issue a building permit to an owner, to a house, and they don't complete the project, they maybe don't even start the project, but you give them a building permit. Now they sell the house. Does the new owner get to use that building permit?
No.
But the building permit's different than a
Well, it
special use
depends on who
permit,
it's
like,
issued to,
right? Like,
So the special use permit would be issued to INHS.
Right, it's issued to them, it's not issued to the property.
And whoever, you know, given this theoretical circumstance, if another party came in, purchased the lot, the park before the work was completed, they would most likely have to reapply.
Because we're issuing the permit to, like you said, to the organization,
Correct.
not
that's
to the land.
But I
That's
thought a
how-
special use permit had to go. I mean, I'm really confused by this.
Well, because, well, I think by the nature of the special use permit, it's not grandfathered. It doesn't go to the next owner.
But for instance, like Mills Paws had a special use permit and it would have been grandfathered had they continued to sell, you know, a gallon of paint. a year,
There was,
right?
there,
Like,
well, there was a condition
so
for a 1
that's-
year. There was a 1 year and it lapsed. Yes,
I mean, but
with the Mills Paw
so in
property.
that case, like, I mean,
So, if I could,
yeah.
Yeah.
please.
I think that maybe the confusion is Mills Paws was not operating on a special use permit. That property was, and that business was there way before the special use permit.
Right.
The special use permit came in because the business was abandoned and ceased to exist for a year. So on that 366th day, it no longer could be what it was before because
It fell
was-
under the residential rules.
Correct. So, and I think also, at least for me, I think the special use permit verbiage, just the name of it is very deceiving. Because I think like you're looking for something more tangible.
Yeah.
And it's not that, it's actually these ongoing improvements to the property. It's
Okay.
not an actual building.
This is our vehicle for approving this project.
That would be correct.
I mean, and
Um,
ultimately,
that-
like, I guess I just want to know, like, if we, you know, or like, I just want to, like, before we take that out, like, I kind of agree, like, I don't know if it really matters or if it doesn't, but it's like, since the title here is special use permit, and it, you know, that sort of implies something more significant than just approving a project.
I agree. And I think if you go back is recent, the one project that comes to mind, there was a special use permit that was done for the Crescent Way project. And the same kind of confusion, I remember the same kind of confusion because of the title of this machine or this tool that you're using to take care of the improvements on this project to make sure that that it's good, that it's a good improvement.
Sure, okay.
Does that make sense? Or did I just?
So, yeah.
The question I have for you, Tom, and related to number 2 is, what is you ultimately issue the building permit. You're ultimately responsible for the description of the project and then the completion of the project according to code in the areas that I know is your responsibility. Not talking about the DEC might step in their particular areas. Are you comfortable with a condition in which our hired engineer will dictate exactly the parameters of the project? Because that's kind of what this says.
Yeah, and that seems a bit harsh, because a project can have, you go from one level to the next, and whatever appears appropriate for the particular developer or the project. I don't think that's our role to say that you have to do exactly this. You have to perform within what the code is and the standards for, your water main sizes and that. That would be the DPW.
It appears to me that there's the possibility that this point 2 would give authority outside of what has already been established in our building project process rather than the engineers being used as a consultant. I would, you know, I'd rather the engineers remain as the consultant and the board, and then as the board approves, it then falls to Tom as our code enforcement officer to interpret and get whatever guidance he needs to make the individual determinations along the way through the project. And it seems to me when we've had issues in other projects, you can walk in and give a stop order, and then it can be addressed, whether it's addressed on a board level, which we've had that before, where a stop order is issued, you're doing it wrong, and you're gonna have to get an approval of the appropriate boards that have been designated to make those decisions. So,
If I can provide a little clarification here, we do defer a lot of our judgment to the appropriate parts of the village, such as the DPW site.
I mean, we could also just change, you know, to the satisfaction of the village engineer to, you know, the village code enforcement officer. Or something, right? So it doesn't, I mean, we can request that Tom take the engineer's comments into consideration under his own. You know what I mean?
I think I'd like to leave it in the structure that's already established and approved by our board of trustees. They've hired Tom, they've appointed us, and we've sought out expert help and pay expert help to give us counsel and advice and recommendations. Does that seem?
Yeah.
Not reasonable.
I don't necessarily have a problem with the first point. I don't care if it stays in or not. It just seems like
we could take it out.
it doesn't seem like it does anything. What we're talking about. The special use permit shall remain in effect for the current owner of the premises, provided the use remains in compliance. I mean, they're already permitted to have a mobile home park, and the mobile home park needs to stay in compliance with the regulations of a mobile home park. And as they do this development, it has to maintain itself within the compliance of the mobile home park. And
It seems like rather than a special, I mean, guys keep saying the special use permit is the vehicle for this. It seems like a building permit would be a much better vehicle for this rather than the special use permit.
but the building permit doesn't bring the zoning board into the discussion and do secret. That's why.
Well, and building code does not cover road improvements.
Yeah.
Right.
All right.
So are we good at eliminating the one first condition? And just not have that verbiage in there?
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
I'm okay with it.
You okay?
I'm fine with that.
And in the second one, do we, like, you made the comment, you made the suggestion, Phil, that
Just cross out village engineer and put in, you know, code
in
enforcement
the second
officer.
line.
Yeah.
To the satisfaction of the code enforcement officer.
Yeah.
Because in the end, he's got to be the one to sign off. Or he's going to call me on the phone and say, we need to have a meeting. I mean, that's what's going to happen. As he looks at this, he's going to say, we got to address this specifically. We missed this. This has to be a variance. This has to be something else. You know, and this is just relating to the comments of this letter.
Yeah.
Right.
So in a sense, we're telling Tom, go through the letter. If it looks good, then I'll sign if we've approved. That's what that's saying. And that leaves it to Tom to talk with the engineer about, okay, I'm not sure where this is all going. Let's get these three people together and let's hash this out and get it to satisfaction. And then Tom calls me and says, I'm satisfied. That sound reasonable? So what I have here is we are approving with the following condition. And here's the condition. The comments within the village engineer's letter to be addressed to the satisfaction of the code enforcement officer prior to signatures being affixed to the site plans, and all signatures are obtained prior to the issuance of a permit. What is the signatures to the site plan? Is that different than? Is that like your review?
Well, this would be like a plot plan. So existing conditions. The site plan would have the improvement shown on it, and there's a detail page in the back of this.
We're just suggesting, including signatures as a mechanism of showing which final version of the plan has the village's approval.
Okay.
Because there's a bunch of these
Okay.
circulating around.
Okay.
so.
Before you give that final piece of paper, you can start digging in the dirt. You've signed off and seen the last and the final of the site plan and that reflects the issues that have been raised in these materials. Okay. The other thing we could do is we could table this whole thing for a whole month and we could have him go do all that work, come back, and then he would say, I'm satisfied. So let's not do that. Let's throw in this one condition and make a motion and a second. Something else? Phil?
No.
Tim,
What?
could you please repeat the condition for me?
Repeat the condition? Yes.
Yes, sir.
Condition, the comments within the village engineer's letter are to be addressed to the satisfaction of the code enforcement officer prior to signatures being affixed to the site plans, and all signatures are obtained prior to the issuance of a permit.
Great, thank you very much.
You are welcome, Tammy. Did you say you wanted to make a motion?
I was gonna make a motion to approve the special use permit for this project with the one condition that Tim just mentioned.
Okay. Can I have a second?
I'll second.
Noah seconds. We'll again take a roll call vote unless there's any more discussion. Phil, how do you vote?
Yes.
Noah, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mike, how do you vote?
Yes.
And Tim votes yes. Special use permit is approved. Anything else? Have a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
All right, Phil moves to adjourn. Have a second?
I'll second that.
Mike seconds it. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried. Meeting's adjourned.